Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Friday morning. Well, football is here. High school football. College, we're still a couple weeks away. Well, we got week 0 next week. I don't understand why the Big 12 isn't taking more advantage of week 0. Come on, the commissioner is going to revolutionize the game. He wants to go to Mexico. If you go to Mexico, you get to play an extra game. Go to Mexico. The game's not part of your TV package. It's on a neutral field. You got a chance to play somebody and sell that game to somebody who wants football when there's no football. Seems to me like that game ought to make money. I don't understand why that isn't happening. Make it happen. Let's go. Stay in San Diego. Go play in Tijuana. They got a soccer stadium there. Seats 30, 35,000 or something. Go play there. Go fly to Monterrey. They actually have a traditional, not football soccer, but American football, college football at Monterrey. Arsen went down there for a game years ago, and there were football lines all over the field. You think when you go to Mexico, you wouldn't have that, and yet there they were. Somebody ought to pull that off. I don't understand. We ought to have college football a week earlier. The pros are playing the preseason games, but the high school kids are playing games that count. They're not region games yet. It's a kickoff game, but they've got this new everybody's in the state tournament deal. Almost everybody. There's a few schools that don't make it. And it's all about basically RPI. And so all these games matter. And we had a good one to kick it off last night. I don't know if you watched Timpview. And Timpview is the defending 5A state champ, and they were playing Sky Ridge, who was the 6A runner-up, lost in the final to Corner Canyon. So 2 really good programs, always loaded with good players. And Timpview scored the last 3 touchdowns of the game and came back to win after trailing 29-14. They came back to win 33-29. So good game, entertaining game, throwing the ball. It was the level of high school football has just gotten a lot better. All the college coaches say it, and just watch games. There'll be a bunch of games streamed tonight. There'll be another game on TV tonight. There's plenty, and of course you may go to a game and see one in person with the full Friday night schedule kicking off. There's just a ton of stuff. Just a ton of football out there if you appreciate good football. The first of a 10-week regular season and then 5 weeks of playoff to crown a champion right before Thanksgiving. So that's the high school football. Enjoyed watching that. Enjoyed watching the kids. Cal Whittingham was at the game. They showed him on TV. And he there had to be a lot of college coaches there, head coaches, assistant coaches, coordinators, whatever, because that game had I think, and it depends on what level you're talking at, but there were at least 10 Division I recruitable players. Now, some of those will go to Power 4 leagues, some of those go to G5, some of those kids might end up signing, with a Big Sky team or a WAC team. But nonetheless, there's a lot of future college football players there. And that's just the seniors, by the way. That 10 number, that's just the seniors. They're also loaded with juniors, the 2026 recruiting class. So it's crazy. It's crazy how good football has gotten here. Now, everybody wants to land the local kids, right? But that is not the only way to build a program. There is also the transfer portal. And now you're going to meet Kenan Johnson. He is a cornerback at the University of Utah. He's from Florida. That's where he grew up, played his high school football there. He went to Georgia Tech. He's already had 5 years of college football. He only played 3 games his first year. His second year was the COVID year, which everyone gets that one back. He only played 1 game his third year. So you can play up to 4 games now and get the redshirt year. And so he's got a 6th year. And he has played more the last couple of years. In his career, 3 forced fumbles, 1 pick. Looked up some of his stats. Where does he fit in with the U? Why does he come to the U? I think we know why all defensive backs go to the U. They get coached up, and it gives them whatever opportunity they have to get to the next level. It gives them their best chance. They're going to get coached up. It still comes down to the measurables. The coaches can't make you taller. Maybe the strength and conditioning coach can work on quickness and explosiveness a little bit, but how fast are you? But the size, the reach, nobody's going to do much about that. But they'll make you better, and they'll give you your best chance. So Kenan Johnson leaving Georgia Tech for the University of Utah. Here he is with the media.
How are you sort of adjusting to fall camp, and what's the DB room looking like?
As far as the adjustments, I think fall camp I've been coming along really well. I'm starting to feel a lot more comfortable in the defense. Starting to make a lot more sense in terms of alignment, assignment, things like that. As far as the DB group, man, I love the guys, man. We love you. Hey, the guys, man, we all close. We got a lot of confidence in one another. We all think we can do similar things and just help contribute to the defense.
What are some of those adjustments that you've had to make coming to Utah? You've played at the D1 level before, obviously, but Morgan Scally kind of throws some wrinkles in that maybe you haven't seen before.
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the main things is just how fast we play, the tempo, just being able to get a line, knowing what I have to do, knowing the adjustments, and more anticipating, from what I see from the offense, it's kind of been like the main thing. But once I, figured out what I need to do, I've been a lot more confident in lining up and knowing my technique and just executing.
There's a lot of experienced talent, but also some transfers, including yourself. Is there a period of just kind of building that chemistry so you know where each other are at the right time?
Absolutely. Communication is key. Just building that communication with the guys each and every practice, every time we get the opportunity to, that's going to allow us to continue to improve and build. Yeah.
What have you seen from the safeties, Nate and Teo? I mean, these guys they were in the program last year.
Yeah.
They're expected to fill the shoes of a couple guys that were in the NFL
Absolutely.
now.
I think Nate and Teo complement each other. Both guys are different. They have different skills that they can bring to the defense. Teo, he's more of like a guy that can fly around, ball hog, go get the ball. Nate Ritchie is a smart individual. He's going to know where to, where the offense might do. He's going to be able to fit in the run. He's going to be able to, help communicate with the backers and things like that.
How impressed have you been with Zamiah Vaughn?
Zamiah, that's my guy, man. I think that me and Zamiah, we push each other every day. He's competing to be the best. I'm competing to be the best corner. So just having the talent, having a guy like that on the other side of me is definitely allowing me to, continue to grow and become a better corner myself.
Do you feel like you are the fastest corner?
I think I am one of the fastest corners.
What about the fastest?
The fastest, I don't know. I can't necessarily say that, I can't say that.
What ultimately went into your decision to commit to Utah? I mean, walk me through what that process looked like and why you ultimately chose it.
Yeah, the process for me was, I paid a lot of attention to college sports, not just like my conference. I will always see Utah producing like defensive players, DBs going to the next level. Sharif Shaw was a big part of my recruiting process. Just talking on the phone with him having a vision, me, like, and him being on the same page or like where I want to go and how I can be used. Just seeing him, make all conference corners year in and year out was a big part of me wanting to come and try to be a part of a defense that could, help produce those type of players, those caliber players. So that was just the main thing. I came up here, I love the visit, I love the scenery. It wasn't too much for me. And it was just, business and ball. And that's what I liked about this place.
One more.
What's the scouting report on Cam Rising and some of these receivers? Obviously, he's coming off a long time without playing football, but you're as well qualified as anyone to give the scouting report.
Well, as far as I can see, the receivers and Cam are coming on just fine, man. Those guys are lights out in terms of their chemistry already. They seem to be on the same page every practice. If I'm not on point, I feel like if I make the smallest mistake, that's going to cause me. So I feel like that's a good sign for those guys over there, just making me be on my toes each and every day.
There's Utah cornerback Kenan Johnson with the media. All right, coming up, Hans Olsen, Bill Bender. We spoke with both those guys in the show yesterday. We're going to replay those interviews for you. Hans Olsen talking Cougars, Bill Bender talking the future of college football. Some about this coming season. I really think this 12-team playoff, enjoy it for 2 years because it's going to 14 or it's going to 16. There is no way they're going to keep giving byes to ACC teams and to Big 12 teams. And I also think there is no way they're going to guarantee them top 4 seeds. Maybe they'll do it for the conference champs because they need the conference title games to mean something. So maybe the Big 10 and the SEC champs will go to 14. And that adds 2 games, which makes more money. But maybe they just go to 16 because that adds 2 more games that make more money. We'll see how all that plays out. But we talk about all of that with Bill Bender coming up. Hans Olsen is next, discussing all things BYU and how the Cougar program is shaping up. And maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm just too much of an optimist. I think the Cougars won 5 games last year with a completely inexperienced backup, and 2 or 3 games that they lost because they made massive blunders and gave up big plays and special teams touchdown. A special teams touchdown against Oklahoma that swung the game on that 99-yard pick. That was a 14-point swing. The Kansas game, they gave up a touchdown right at the start of the game, another one right at the start of the second half. If they just stop turning the ball over and giving up pick sixes and scooping scores, I think 5-7 becomes 7-5. And I think they've got more talent this year. They've certainly got experience at quarterback, right? If Bohannon wins the job, which I think is probably the best way to guess right now, and I don't have any inside info on that is my best guess off what I've heard and what I've been told and what I suspect. But assuming he wins and Retzlaff's the quarterback, well, now Retzlaff's got 4 games under his belt. I mean, I thought he looked a lot better in his third and fourth game. I thought the team played better in the third and fourth game under him than they did in the first and second. I don't think that's really debatable. And talking to him a couple of times here in the offseason, I mean, his confidence level, he is just so much, and the coach is saying the same thing. He's way in front of where he was. So they got a better backup quarterback position. Most teams have to win games with their backup quarterbacks. Sometimes you got to win games with your third quarterback, and that's a big ask. So I'm a little more positive on BYU getting to 6 or 7 games. I mean, the top of the league is strong, and they don't catch any breaks at the top of the league. So I'm not sure I see him going for 8 or 9. But we'll talk with Hans about that next. Stay with us. DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Hans Olsen is back, co-host of Hans and Scotty G. Join us to talk football 2 weeks out from the first weekend of college football. Hans, good morning.
Well, here's a crazy memory for you, DJ. This goes back to 2006, my first year on air with you guys. PK was out. I filled in for him. You and I were at Granado's eating some amazing sandwiches and some incredible cake. That is 18 seasons now. It's just crazy how time flies, man.
Yes, we agree with you on that. Time is flying. And the funny thing is, we get older, the kids stay the same, and the players go through a lot of the same stuff. College football changes a little bit, but here it is, another quarterback derby, and it's going on and on. Now, other quarterback derbies have gone on and on for different reasons. There are times that coaches have said, well, if I name one, the other guy's going to transfer, so I'm going to play them both in the first game, and we'll keep this thing going. And in this case, I don't know that fits because I think Retzlaff's pretty invested and Bohannon's at the end of his eligibility, so I don't think that's a factor, although I don't know, transferring's crazy, maybe it is. And the Bohannon's coming back from an injury, so they're trying to give him time to show what he can do, and from everything we're hearing, he's doing a lot more. He's made major progress. We're hearing that from him and from coaches and from receivers. And then I also think there's a chance that both these guys are going to start at some point this season, so they might as well keep prepping like they're both going to be starters because at some point they both are going to be starters. Maybe there's another reason out there. Why is this maybe it's just legitimately that close. What do you think? What do you know?
I think it's legitimately that close, and I think each bring a unique component, and I think that they're probably looking at their running back situation, trying to figure out how available LJ Martin will be and what they can do in their run game with LJ. The other thing is they want to get it right, so they don't have to second-guess themselves and then make a different decision 2 or 3 games later after some hiccups, because the last thing they want to do is make the decision and then have a mess on their hands and then have to say, okay, we were wrong. Yeah, we evaluated it as long as we did, and we were wrong, and have to go back to the drawing board. The other thing is, what exactly is forcing them to make the decision? You know, Aaron Roderick said, well, we wanted to get to a point where everybody on the team is like, duh, yeah, that's the starter. Well, that might be the case already. At least it always was in our camps. Like within a week, within maybe 2 weeks, it was like, yeah, duh, that's the starter. Even that year that we went through Charlie Peterson and Brandon Doman and
Ingeman.
What's that?
Ingeman.
Yeah, Brett Ingeman. Like we went through a race of quarterbacks going into that season. We all kind of knew who the guy was going to be at that point, and then we kind of watched the rotation of it because of injury and because of other necessities. And I just think they want to get it right. I don't think they feel like they have to absolutely come out and announce it until they know for a fact, and so they're just slow playing it.
Well, if it's that close 3 weeks into camp, can they get it wrong? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I think they can because, and it's crazy because it feels like a duh thing to me. I look at Gary Bohannon and I'm just like, duh. Like he's healthy. He's been at this level. He's won at this level. He looks really good. I've been out there. I've had an opportunity a couple times to see his movements, and just to see him standing next to McKay Hillstead and see him standing next to Jake Retzlaff, and then see him exit the pocket and the way he does it, and then see the traditional fluid throw motion over the top instead of the sidearm flip and fling like Retzlaff. And there's a lot of things I see. I'm like, that's duh. Like, make it him. But I do think, and I don't know why. I think it's going to be Bohannon, and I'm not 100% what is keeping them from announcing it other than the fact they don't have to.
Retzlaff's ability to run, you mentioned, is LJ going to be healthy? How much does that factor into how they deploy him and their quarterbacks?
Well, I worry about it because a season without LJ Martin, where you didn't bring any transfers in for the first time in a few years, and there's not a ton of depth. And I know Hinckley Rapati's got a bunch of upside, and I do like Miles Davis. He can get outside so well, but a year without LJ Martin could be a long year at that running back position. So I think you slow play it. I think you slowly ease him back into hits. And depending on whatever that injury is, I think that you just take it really slow until you get to conference play. Thing is, you know you're going to need him against SMU and Wyoming, so you're going to have to throw him into full action if you feel like you're pressed in a need. But I just want to make sure that they do everything possible to make sure LJ Martin is there through conference play.
DJ was asking earlier if we thought that BYU had professional or NFL receivers. I said I wasn't sure. I didn't think so. What do you think?
I think Chase Roberts he's NFL potential. I think Darius Lassiter has a lot to prove, and there's some unknowns. I don't think Keelan Marion is. I don't think Cody Epps is. But I do think that they're all really good college football players. I do think Chase Roberts has the size, and I think that he's got the hands and he's got the confidence that maybe he gets a shot. Maybe if he blows up this year, maybe back in 6th, 7th round or something. But I think that he is a potential next level receiver. He's a durable body too, and I just love his game. But I think that the other guys, Kingston and everybody else that I've mentioned, I think that they've just got a lot more to prove.
Maybe Phillips down the road?
I really like JoJo. I do, and I like Tay, the new Nakua boy. I've had an opportunity to see him a little bit, and I like him a lot. He's got some confidence. It's funny because I'm out there watching him, and I feel like I'm watching a smaller version of Samson. And we all watched Samson for a lot of years when he was at University of Utah and then made his transition to BYU, and now he's getting his shot with the Saints and getting another NFL shot, and I hope he can do the most with it. But those guys bring a lot of energy. Yeah, JoJo maybe down the line. PK, I need to see him in a game situation, but I think that both he and Tay Nakua could possibly have it down the line.
PK and I were talking about the odds of getting to 6 wins. I think it's more likely than not. I think it hangs in the balance, and there'll be some stuff that breaks both for and against them. So there's a little wiggle room there. I don't really see an off-the-charts, 9-3 or anything like that coming. But they were so close last year in 3 games that it doesn't seem to me that and their backup quarterback spot's going to be better this year than it was last year, however the starter role works out. So I think 6 or 7 wins is more likely than getting stuck on 5, but there's no guarantees. What do you think?
Well, I think that you're very accurate. I think both of you are right on it, and this is what BYU fans are going to have to wait on and look for. You're probably going to have 4 wins going into the final 2 games. Or at least the hope is you have at least 4 wins going into those final 2 games, which I believe are Houston and Arizona State.
Yeah.
So that's it right there, DJ. You're going to have to wait and possibly until game 12 to know if you're bowl eligible. And it might be a situation, again, like it was last year, sitting through a lot of games and some losses because that schedule gets so wacky through September, through October, and into November that we might all be waiting until those final 2 games to see what ground they can make up. Now, the good news is I think Houston and Arizona State are ripe for the picking. The bad news is you got to make it through an entire season, and you got to have your quarterback straight, and you got to have a healthy team, and you got to have all the luck on your side to make sure that Houston and Arizona State are wins. But I do think, I know there's a lot of people that are high on Central Florida, and Gus Malzahn with KJ Jefferson, and they do have, I think, the 3rd best running back in the entire conference coming back. So I got a lot of expectations for Central Florida, but I do think BYU can get that win in Orlando. And I think they should get that win in Orlando. I think they should split SMU and Wyoming. I think that they should get that win right out of the gates. I think that they've got to manufacture and sniff out one more win to get to that 4-win total so that they can make sure that they seal up 6 by the end of the season. And yeah, I think 6 is it. I put it at 6. If they get 7, it's like, man, that's a great season. That's a really solid season. If they get 8, it's like extend Kalani, extend him, because that's a gigantic jump from anything that people thought could be possible with the quarterbacks that they currently have. So I think expectations are to a point where you could be really happy if they find a way to 7 and 8.
You're a trenches guy, and obviously both sides weren't good enough at last season's performance. And there's talk of this year with a new line coach on the offensive side and some dudes and some guys returning that they'll have a better pass rush, all that. Sort of have a little bit of a skepticism about that and wait and see. How much do you buy in that they'll be effective on both sides?
Well, I always get myself in trouble on this, but this is where I'm just going to say I don't buy it and show it to me. Because if you list Mbanya as your starting edge, then I don't buy it because I watched him a lot and he didn't get there. And if you're telling me that Tyler Batty is going to go from getting pressures to getting sacks, I don't buy it. I love that kid. I have a lot of faith in him. I'd love to see him be the next double-digit sack guy at BYU, first since like 2012 or 11, since one of the Kafusis. I would love to see it, but I need to see it. I mean, I've got to see it. I've got, I think, a 3-year sample size at Tyler Batty, and I want to say high-end sack was 4, and I think that there might have been a couple of years of 2 or 2.5 in there. And I love him, and I do think he's a great DN. I think he's a fantastic run-stop DN, but you're asking me about pressures.
Yeah.
And so I just say, show it to me. Show it to me. To this entire defensive staff, it's like, let's go. You know, and here's the crazy thing, PK, and you know these guys really well. They go and hire Gary Anderson and Chad Kalaha to be behind the scenes as coordinators and analysts and the help staff. And it's like, I don't know if you could have 2 better guys that are working techniques and schemes and designs. And so if it doesn't happen, I know this, they had the coaching. They've got the scheme, because I've seen Gary Anderson's scheme and Jay Hill's defensive understanding, and I've seen those schemes work time and time again and be top 10 in the country in sacks. So then we got to go back to the drawing board and figure out where the hell this thing's broken. Because so what I'm saying, PK, prove it to me.
Yeah.
And until I see it proven, I'm not buying it.
Right.
Okay, now I listen to you talk, and I feel way less confident about them winning 7 games. I mean, the line of scrimmage, we started talking pass rush with Papinga, and he went right to, hey, our run defense has got to be better. Let's get that fixed first, and then we'll fix the pass.
Boy, that's the truth. I mean,
okay, you're just dragging everybody down, Hans. You're usually Mr. Positive.
Well, here's the thing, though, DJ. Like, the numbers don't lie from last year. And, they're 109th in the country in run-stop defense. So, yeah, you got to get better. And I'll tell you, first and foremost, what I think, I think that defensive front was one of the biggest issues on getting the run stop. Every time they ran any type of Rams or Lions, or they ran any type of hard slants or hard digs, they were getting washed, hit in the back, pushed to the sideline, gaps were opening laterally. Like, it was really tough to watch, just some of the basic usage of your defensive front. So I do believe it's going to get better, DJ. Like, the run stop, I would put a lot of money that that's going to get better, even though you're going to be seeing a lot of the same stud running backs. I do believe that's going to get better, but it's got to get a lot better. But I also want to point out, too, that defensive backfield, the DBs, the safeties, I'm actually feeling a lot better about them. Feeling better about having Harper out there, feeling better about having Alfrey healthy. Feeling really good about Jacob Robinson, and I know that they've got 2 new guys, one transfer that they're really trying to work in. So I feel good about the back end. I was watching that Oklahoma game, and they pushed a drop 8 quite a bit, especially in the first quarter and a half. And I think that you got to find a way to maybe rush 4, get yourself really going into 5 against some of these bigger teams this year.
Hans, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for joining us, and we'll expect more football at noon when you and Scotty G take over the airwaves.
I will tell you, DJ, every time this year it happens without fail. I kind of hit this optimistic peak for both Utah, BYU, and even Utah State. I get this bottle of optimism where I'm watching the film and I believe these guys are going to return and do great things. And I mean, right out of the gates, man, we're going to get a good feel for this, and I just can't wait to get to kickoff. Thanks for your time, guys.
All right, there is Hans Olsen. A reminder, DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Bill Bender on the future of college football, both this upcoming season and long-term, where it's going for the next 5 to 10 years. That's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined by Bill Bender, senior college football writer for the Sporting News. Bill, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
You know, Bill, usually this time of year we're like, the games are going to come. We're not going to hear about all the politics. I feel like we're in for a 2-track season here as Florida State and Clemson try to do whatever they do. Is this stuff going to die down? Are we going to be totally focused on the games, or is it going to be 2 things happening at once?
I think more focused on the games, but anytime you have 2 schools with an outstanding lawsuit against the conference and, Kyle Whittingham's comments about the next realignment. We love talking about realignment. Writers love talking about it. Fans love talking about it. I think the speculation's more fun than the action. It's kind of like free agency in pro sports. I think we like talking about it more than when it actually happens. But I'm excited about the games. I don't know about you. I'm ready for the games.
Yeah, we always are when it comes. It seems like it's the most anticipated start of a season because it actually starts a week or so earlier than the NFL. I'm wondering at the end of the season, how do you think the at-large bids are going to go? Because you look at these preseason All-American teams, and they're just dominated by the 2 big conferences.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to go to most of the big conferences. I think the Big 12 will be hard-pressed to get more than 2 teams on any given year. Same goes to the ACC, and the tricky part comes take the Big 12, for example. I think the Big 12 will be the most exciting conference in college football in terms of the race. I can't pick a winner. I think if the 3 of us, there's 16 teams, one of us would get 6 teams. If the 3 of us did like a Big 12 draft of who we think will win it, I think we'd all leave happy because we'd be like, maybe Oklahoma State can do it. Point being, to answer your question, yeah, the SEC and the Big Ten, will get most of the at-large bids. And I think once they take all those, they're going to want more after that because of how big those conferences are.
Yeah, see, I want to talk football games, but you're leading me down the realignment political football path here because they'll take the G5 bid and they'll take whatever at-large bids would go to the ACC and the Big 12, and maybe they would take the automatic bids. It feels like the 14-team tournament's inevitable. It's 2 more games, and why should those 2 leagues get a bye? I don't think we're staying at 12. I think we're going to 14 for sure. Maybe we're going to 16.
I think 16 will happen too. And you said it right off the top. I'm an Ohio University alum, MAC guy. Went to a MAC school. Love the fact that on one end there is that small chance that they could get a playoff berth. Don't love the fact that it'll be scrutinized pretty heavily. And I think that's something to watch for the next couple of years is if we get a game like Oregon-Liberty last year where Oregon won 45-6, and we get it 3 more years, the Big Ten, the SEC, even the Big 12 at that point, be like, why are they getting a berth? I'm ready for that. I think that conversation is going to happen unless there's a big upset early in the college football playoff 12-team era. You're dead on. I mean, I hate that we're doing the political thing, right? But you're dead on with everything you just said.
Well, then, if we go along those lines, we're trying to build up the season. We're anticipating it in big games and all that stuff. I'm wondering if there will really be big games that much in terms of like Oregon and Ohio State, October 12th. I keep hearing people talk about it on the national. I got the satellite radio, and I listen to and from work to try to get some insight on what I can use on our shows. And if both those teams are going to get in, is it really that big of a game?
Right. So I'm an NFL guy, too. I love watching the NFL. And I'm not one of those guys that's like college football is great, NFL is terrible. I like both. I like high school football. I watch my kid play junior high football. So any level is cool with me. I do think the college game is becoming more and more like the NFL game. And I've told my buddies that love it. I said, I got a lot of Buckeye buddy friends. I said, you're going to have to adjust the way you watch this stuff because you're going to play them twice. So which one matters more? The Oregon losing to Ohio State in the regular season, beats them in the Big Ten championship game, maybe beats them in a quarterfinal. How does that regular season game matter like it used to? It's not going to matter like it used to. That's one of the consequences of this new route we're going down.
How are they going to, speaking of conference title games, I assume they're going to be teams tied at 7-2 or 8-1, and they're not going to play it head-to-head. The conference title games, I know they make money, so they'll probably stay, but they don't seem to make any sense. They're a little like the conference basketball tournaments. They're there for fun, and it might be somebody's path to the big deal, but they're kind of in the way and unnecessary, except they make money.
I agree. Well, other than money and TV, right? And that's why they'll still be there. So I wondered that out loud and just kind of, I'm so glad I'm talking to you guys this morning because I've told that to my, people I work with, our friends, and I just get blank stares. Well, they're conference championship games. Well, they don't have the value they used to other than a first-round bye. And to me, you've already got people saying this on social media. Well, why is the 12-team playoff not going to match the rankings in the AP poll? Of course it's not going to match because this is the system we set up. So I've always been a proponent of play out the regular season and then and I know it'd be controversial, but don't play conference championship games, put the 12 best teams in. If it's a committee, if it's a computer, if it's a combination of a committee and a computer, just put 12 teams in. I think once you're down to 13 and you're sitting there and I'm going to pick on a school here. I hate to pick on it. Oklahoma State was the first one that popped in my head. And they're 13. Well, sorry, but you're 13. There's 12 teams in this thing.
You talk about the Big 12 and have the potential to be exciting. How much do you factor in because there's a lot of unknowns? You got for the second year in a row, the conference is having a major facelift, and you wonder, will that cause maybe some unpredictability? When you say in terms of excitement, what are you basing it on there?
Quarterbacks and new teams and new venues. I mean, look who they brought in from the Pac-12. They brought in 4 teams. Utah, steady success. Arizona, coming off an unbelievable back half of last season where they were putting up more than 40 points per game. They got maybe the best quarterback-receiver combo in the country. Colorado and everything that Deion brings, including two of the best players in college football in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Arizona State, they need work. I mean, I can only sell them so much right now. And you throw that on top of the other Big 12 quarterbacks, both Kansas schools are ranked. West Virginia has a quarterback in Garrett Green that was really hot at the end of last year. Oklahoma State's good. That's 8 teams right there. 8 that I think could win the conference. And Texas Tech, they're going to be good. So I think the games are going to be fun. I think it's less stodgy than the SEC and the Big Ten. I think Brett Yormark has done an incredible job. I was one of those people that, I'll admit it, I wrote, this conference is done after Texas and Oklahoma left. What a job to keep that conference afloat by their commissioner. I think it's an amazing job.
The same 5 teams that were picked at the top of the preseason poll in the Big 12 were then the same 5 teams that were ranked in the coaches poll, the same 5 teams that were ranked in the media poll. One of those teams has to underachieve. Probably a couple of them will. And they won't finish ranked, and they won't be anywhere near the conference title game. And at the same time, last year, the preseason poll had West Virginia last, and they went 6-3 in the league. And Iowa State had the gambling issue, new quarterback, redshirt freshman. They got to 6-3 in the league after a terrible September. Who got missed on this year, you think?
I think Texas Tech could be really good with Taj Brooks, their defense, their schedule. You know, the thing about the Big 12 that even adds to it is a lot of the huge games are in September. And I'm not sure if that was by design, but when you look at the schedules, you're like, man, they better be ready to go because they're playing huge games early. You know, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, early on the schedule. Iowa State, I might have overlooked a little bit to answer your question. I think Rocco Becht had a really good year. Ames is a tough place to play for those who are unfamiliar with it, and they're steady. You just said it. Did they really give 6-3 in conference last year? That's incredible. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's for sure. Utah fans, for whatever it's worth, man, a lot of them think that they're just going to take this league by storm. Do you see a dominant team in this league, whether it's Utah or whoever it might be?
Well, one of the things with all of the realignment, and I've been pointing this out for every conference, one thing Utah has working in its favor is a distinct home field advantage. I think you got to win your home games. And that might sound like, well, no kidding, duh, but it is important that you not slip up at home because with Cam Rising, with that home field advantage, with the interior offensive and defensive lines, Utah has some strength they can rely on. And it's just you got to win some of those road games along the way. There are some tough places to play in every conference, the Big 12 no exception. It's like that first time going to Manhattan, or that first time I mentioned Ames, that first time going to Stillwater. Who deals with the unfamiliarity factor the best? And vice versa, you know. West Virginia's got to go out to Arizona State, things like that. I think I'm very interested to see how that works, not only in the Big 12, but in places like the SEC and the Big 10, where, call me crazy, but I heard too many coaches say this. I don't think they're as worried about the travel as the writers and the fans are. I think travel's travel. You're going to do that. I think they're worried about the venues more.
Obviously, when you look at Utah's schedule on paper, Oklahoma State and Arizona, those first 2 games, you're talking about the schedule is front-loaded. But when the Utes were in the Pac-12, there was this thing that got said and written over and over, how often the Pac-12 sent a good team, a potential playoff team, on the road on a Friday night, and they got beat. And it was partly because of the environment inside the stadium, turbocharged, prime time, the other team's peaking for it. You're making a team travel, and there's less preparation. And then they go to the Big 12, and the Utes have to go to UCF on a Friday at the end of the season and fly cross-country. Do you think UCF is going to be really good and capable of pulling that off? Because on paper it sets up it might be a problem, but do they have the team to back it up?
That's a game that gives you gray hair if you're a coach or a fan. It's going to be hard to go over there because you can't predict the humidity. You can predict that Gus Malzahn's going to have an offense that runs a ton of plays. They're going to have a veteran quarterback in KJ Jefferson. That is the definition. Everything you described, trap game. Friday night, charged up fans, had all day. had all day to get prepared. It'll be a tough game. Absolutely. And that's part of this that we're all going to have to adjust. If you want the game to feel like the NFL, it kind of does. I mean, I'm a Green Bay fan, and I mean, their opener's in Brazil. And I'm like, how do you even prepare for that? So I think travel, like I said, venues and adjusting to that and making sure you take care of business at home. And I think at the end of the season, that's going to turn out to be right. That the teams that finish unbeaten at home and maybe slip up once on the road will be the teams in the playoff. And I do think one other side thought, I think it's going to be really hard for a team to go 16-0 in this environment. You're going to have 1 and 2 lost teams get the championship games. It's going to be fun.
How about a BYU? You think they can knock off somebody, particularly at home?
Right. I mean, they've got a tough schedule as well. And another thing when you come into a conference, if you look at Houston, BYU, Cincinnati, and UCF, they struggled making that adjustment to the Big 12 last year. Now, granted, Texas and Oklahoma didn't make that adjustment easier, but again, like it was new. I kind of like, for those that I used to play a lot of video games on like Nintendo. This is old school. But when you got up to that next level, it got harder. And I think it's going to be harder for a few years for BYU to win in this conference. Maybe a little less because of the mix of teams now, but that's what happens when you work your way up. Utah's done it the right way, by the way. How many, you guys know this, they've played in how many conferences? Mountain West, Pac-12, Big 12. I think they just continue to incrementally build up to the moment. And I'm not sure a program other than maybe TCU has done it better over the last 25 years to make its way up the college football ranks.
Yeah, in 30 years that we've both been in the market here, you left out the WAC. That'd be the 4th league we saw them in.
I thought of the WAC. I just didn't want to say it out loud and be wrong.
Yep. WAC to Mountain West to Pac-12 to Big 12 to whatever comes next. Something is coming next. There are a handful of athletes who are getting the preseason run. It's Brant Keithy here. Obviously, Oklahoma State's got the most heralded running back in the country. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Do you see other big-time difference-making players that are on the radar out there? Or do you just think they'll emerge and we'll figure it out when we see the highlights, but there's no way to know now?
Right. Well, we did our All-American team yesterday, and that's always a fun exercise for me. It's really hard to pick receivers. It's really hard to pick the defensive backs. You always have a couple players. I think a guy that, he's not off the radar to me, but if you watch Jason Henderson at Old Dominion, he reminds me of Luke Kuechly. He's an absolute tackle machine. He was on our first team All-American. People said, why is there an Old Dominion guy on there? I was like, watch him play for 10 minutes. And I love guys like that are able to make our team. It's obviously loaded with Big Ten and SEC guys. There are like 8 Ohio State guys on our team. One other side thought, Notre Dame has a lot of preseason guys on our All-Americans on our preseason list. And one thing about Notre Dame in this new environment as well is if you are a Big 12 fan or an ACC fan or any conference fan, you're rooting for Notre Dame to lose.
Yep.
Because if you want one of those at-large bids, I think there's going to be a universal, we need the Irish to lose. And they're going to be pretty good this year.
Bill, you got the Ohio background sitting there in Columbus. And so you got Ken Griffey right there, but yet on International Left-Handers Day, you chose to put Tony Gwynn. And I love Tony Gwynn, but I'm thinking, what are you doing, man? You got Griffey, you got Morgan, you got some guys in your backyard.
He just recognizes greatness, and he just can't lie.
And he was great, but you got other locals. I would think the local people would run you out of town. You got to go with Junior.
Now, I have a funny story about because of Tony Gwynn. I'm a Padres fan to this day. I was a lefty growing up, and he was in the All-Star game every day. He did it with class. You see the Twitter threads now of his ridiculous statistics on hitting the ball. I don't think there's ever been a better contact hitter in my life. I do get into the Pete Rose, Tony Gwynn argument quite a bit up here in Ohio with my buddies, but it's always a fun one. But yeah, I'm a Padres fan to this day, even with all those crazy changes. You want to talk about changes? How many ugly uniforms have they had over the years, and I still like them.
I grew up in San Diego County, and I can't believe that they found a heart and a soul here after the All-Star break. A year and a half of huge payrolls and 500 records. This has been awesome. Just wake up every morning, and if they go to – I went to bed the other night. They were up 2-0. Woke up and they won. Unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. See, I have to stay up a little bit later to watch them sometimes, but still a Padres fan at heart. And, if you look at their year-by-year record against the Reds, which I have on my computer because I have my buddies that root for the Reds, it's incredible how they have the Reds number.
Well, we got to have something. Haven't had enough playoff berths. So, Bill, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem, guys. Have a great day.
There's Bill Bender, Sporting News writer on college football. When we come back, what is trending next?